Hey guys, Ben here. Today I'm going to do a video on my ZT0561. They don't make this knife anymore, but I mean all ZTs are pretty much the same. I've carried this knife for 3 years now, and I use it as a knife. You know, it's not a piece of art to me. It's a knife I can depend on. But I was looking on YouTube just for some general maintenance and cleaning your bearings, blah 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 blah. So today I'm going to do a video on that and bring you along. So the first thing you're going to need is a zero tolerance with the KVT system, like the 0561. I'm sure there's other knives in that brand that have the ball bearing system. Things you're going to need, in my opinion, I mean you can use pretty much any lubricant, but I just use simple rem oil. It's cheap and it works for me. Paper towel is always nice, just to lay. If you guys don't have a carpet like I do, it's always nice to lay your knife steel down so you don't nick your blade. And then honestly, the best thing in my opinion is just Q-tips to get in all the nook and crannies of the titanium slab. I have this lanyard, so that obviously that first step is to remove. If you have a lanyard or if you have any sort of dangling objects, so pretty much a lanyard on your knife, just remove it. Mine's simple, it's a loop. First thing I do is take it apart, but I'll show you what I use to take it apart. I use a Leatherman wave. I mean, any Leatherman with the bit driver will work. And the bits I use, well, obviously it's the only bits you can use. It's the T10 and then the T8. The T8 is for the center ball bearing bolt, and then the other 6 is the T10 for just the slabs. Okay, so the first thing I do is I take the T10 and I just remove, put it torqued. So I was just on YouTube there, and I was looking for a video on general maintenance. I mean, I've done this for 3 years, but I don't know if people are interested in this, but honestly, it's a very simple process. It's just 6 bolts and then just lubricating and cleaning. But I'll bring you along for the process, and this is my first YouTube video, so give me a chance there. I'm learning. You know how nerve-wracking it is. But honestly, if you got just put in perspective, this is the Ontario Rat 1. I carried this thing for 2 years prior to having this knife, and if you guys have this knife, it's honestly as simple to clean and take it apart. Gotta torque the crap out of these things. I usually do this every 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, I work with my hands, so dust is obviously going to happen. If you're working with wood or metal or just any sort of environment outdoors, you're gonna get dust, you're gonna get anything, even just having in your jeans, right? So I do it every 2 to 3 weeks, because you can start to hear grime and grit in your bearings, and it just doesn't open as easily, you can tell. So these are the bolts here, and then it's a very simple process. Obviously, you just take your G10 off, you take your stainless steel liner off, and then you have your dividers there. What are these things called? I'm losing my mind here. And then you can see obviously how dirty and dusty it gets. The bearing itself is pretty clean. This is pretty clean. It's not too bad, but I might as well clean it. I'm here. And then obviously this is where I use the Q-tips. Just in there. I mean, a rag will work as well, but Q-tips make a world of difference. So the first thing I do, I just get a piece of paper towel and literally just soak even the bolts, the pivots, the dividers, the G10 even, the stainless steel divider, the titanium block. I literally just soak it all in rem oil. Just if there's any gunk, it's just going to lubricate it, and even the G10, it's clean to the scale. And even the blade itself, actually. And as you do this, leave it there. Don't worry, it's rem oil, it's not that expensive. And then for the bearings, I mean, the bearings is the knife. I mean, if your bearings aren't cleaned and they're not working properly, you're going to tell, and you're going to still be able to hear that grit. So what I usually do is I take a cap from any cap, WD-40, it has a little section inside. And what I do is I just make a puddle of rem oil. It's kind of a waste, but if there's any gunk in that bearing, it's going to break apart. So after the bearing, leave the bearings sit while you clean the rest of the knife in the process of it. So basically just, clean it. very simple. Nothing very complicated here. And you'll see the gunk. Oh, not really actually. See, like I said, it's, oh, there you go. All the oils on your skin, you know, they turn brown. The stainless steel liner, I don't know, I've had, there's always gunk on it, but I mean, it's not that big of a deal to me. Like I said, I use this knife as a knife. It's not a holy grail knife to me. It's literally just a knife. So this is where the Q-tips come in. See, I mean, just makes a world of difference. I mean, you do go through a lot of them, but I still think it's worth it. And people are probably gonna ask me why I don't take the pocket clip off. Like I said, I use this as a knife, and I don't know how many times this pocket clip has come, you know, has hung up on a piece of wood or anything, and so I don't even touch a pocket clip anymore because these two little bolts are, well, I'm not gonna lie, they're stripped, so I don't touch it because I'm scared that one day it's just gonna fall off. Same with the blade here, you know, like right here, use a Q-tip. It's a very simple process. I mean, out of all my pocket knives, it's the easiest knife to take apart. For sure, hands down the easiest knife to take apart. But like I said, there's a lot of reviews on this knife, but I've never seen someone take it apart and clean it. I mean, honestly, when you're spending $200 or more on a knife, obviously it's not something you want to do, but it is, if you're using it as a knife and you're in the environment, it's definitely something you have to do because, I mean, there's ball bearings and they're exposed to the environment, so you're gonna have to clean them. And then, you know, I just take the Q-tip, and I mean, this is just aesthetic. You don't really need to do this. I mean, dust will come back, you know, no matter what you do. See, it's all gunky. It's nasty, freaking nasty. So now pretty much you can wait. I mean, this knife is really not that dirty, but everything's clean now. You know, everything's moderately clean, as clean as I want it to be. You know, I do this every 2 weeks, so it's not that big of a deal. Now you can take your bearings out, and they're full of oil. And what I do, I just take that piece of paper towel you're using, or a rag or whatever, and I just literally take it and I just pivot it on my finger. And usually, I mean, it's not a very good moment to do this, but usually when I do this, you'll just see a bunch of grit and dust come out of these bearings, and that's all it is, honestly. Yeah, there's one. It's crazy how I mean, this is like my first YouTube video there, and it's crazy how actually nerve-wracking it is. I never thought it would be, but it is. It's crazy. Like, I do this every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, and it's like the easiest process. But when it comes to YouTube, you know, it's different. But like, I don't know. I'm trying this out. I'm young, but I figure I might as well. You know, something people are interested in. I'm hoping. So it's you know, I'm putting it out there. So now, basically, since everything's clean, I just take another rag and just lightly coat it with rem oil as you put it back together, so everything's coated in rem oil. Your liner, I mean, everything's stainless or titanium, so you don't have to worry about rust really, but it's still nice to, you know. But like I said, I don't really know too many people that carry a ZT every day. I mean, it's an expensive knife, but I figure any knife's a knife. I mean, I should be able to use it. You know, it's a holy grail knife to some people, but I should be able to use it as a knife. I shouldn't be scared to use it. So that's why I'm happy with what ZT Kershaw did with this knife. It's so simple. See, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, but on the actual ball bearing, this was totally trial and error. put it together, it didn't function properly, take it apart, put it together again. I did it like at least a dozen times, just trying to figure it out until I actually looked at the bearing. But one side of the bearing is very smooth, like the Teflon is actually very smooth, and then the other side there's little rings around the actual ball bearing. So basically what that enhances is that so all the movement is on one side, and that's the side you want towards your knife. So the side with the rings obviously goes on the handle scale and the G10. So basically you put your pivot pin, you put your first ball bearing with the rings face down, then you put your blade down, and then I put my blade at a certain angle where it's putting down the lock bar. Because if I do this and put the knife together, then the lock bar is fully engaged, and then you're going to have a hell of a time trying to get that lock bar to disengage. The next is to put your next bearing up, next bearing in, same thing, rings facing the scale, not the blade. And then what you do is you put your pivots in. Meanwhile, you're holding the blade on the lock bar, so the lock bar is actually pushing against you. That's an easy thing to push down. And then you put your stainless steel liner like that, and then you can see all your pivots locked in. And then you put your G10 scale back on, and then what you do is you take your pivot bolt, put it in, and then you take your T8 of your limited bit kit, tighten it down, not too crazy, because you're gonna come back and play with it to get perfect. Where's my where'd I put it? Terrible, just terrible. Always lose my packet. Am I losing my mind? So then you take your T10, insert it into your bit driver, and then I usually start from the outside because obviously nothing's holding, and then just put it in and just tighten it up. I mean nothing, just had tight. You don't want to go too crazy. Then just keep putting them in. Come inside. Very simple process, honestly. Like, you should have seen me the first time I take it apart, because I was like, I didn't really use this knife, to be honest, that much, because it was the first expensive knife I ever bought. Like, I had the Rat one on me for 2 years non-stop, and then I decided to treat myself to a beautiful knife, and I did. But I never really used it because I was scared, honestly, because it's a very, very hard steel. Didn't really have the tools to sharpen it, and I've never even heard of a knife with ball bearings. It's not something I ever thought of. So when I first took it apart to clean it, because you should have seen the first time I cleaned it, holy crap, it was dirty. And I was scared, but honestly, after that first time, I was like, wow, this is the simplest thing. Like, this knife is honestly, it's so well thought of. Like, just the engineering behind it, but the amount of time and effort into it's crazy, but just the simplicity of taking it apart and cleaning it. So now you can see, very smooth. And now then all you're going to do is put your T8 bit back in. You're going to be able to tell too with the center line of the knife, the blade right here. But what I do is I just open the knife, see if there's any blade play. There isn't. And I'll just back it off a tiny bit. There's a little bit of blade play now, and then tighten it up a little bit. And just find that happy medium where there's no blade play at all, but it's just super silky smooth. See a little bit of blade play still, and you're doing like little tiny movements here, okay? Still a little bit. See, absolutely no blade play now. None up and down, none side to side. And after 3 years of me using this knife, there's still absolutely no blade play. I'll do a review of this knife later on, but beautiful knife. And now it's just like new, like new. Like, it's crazy how it's crazy. And then all you do is obviously put your lanyard or whatever you have back on, And then that's honestly the whole process of how I clean my knife.